right? Today would be his pants. And he jumped into the sea, into the water, right? He just, I don't know whether it was out of panic and excitement. I don't know what caused him to do that. We don't know. But he jumped in. Now, people have speculated, but I don't need to speculate because it's not part of the main part of the story. But he jumps in to the water, and I assume he starts flapping or swimming towards the shore. It says that they were 200 cubits. Right? Right? Today would be his pants. And he jumped into the sea, into the water. Right? He just, right? Today would be his pants. And he jumped into the sea, into the water. Right? He just, I don't know whether it was out of panic and excitement. I don't know what caused him to do that. We don't know. But he jumped in. Now, people have speculated, but I don't need to speculate because it's not part of the main part of the story. But he jumps in to the water, and I assume he starts flapping or swimming towards the shore. It says that they were 200 cubits away, which is about 100 meters, 300 feet. That's like from here to across the street over there. So it's quite far, right? And so he starts. But the other disciples came in this little boat that they had, for they were not far from the land, but about 200 cubits, and they dragged the net of fish with the boat. They're almost going to sink again. I don't know. Was Peter afraid because he hadn't dealt yet, even though he'd been with Jesus in the upper room when he just showed up? But he hadn't dealt with, the denying him 3 times. Jesus hadn't addressed it. Was he ashamed? Some people have said he was ashamed. Was he so excited to see the Lord? He thought, maybe he thought, I'll never see him again. And now he sees him again. And so he jumps in and he goes out there. Was he just, as Peter often did, he just did it first and then he started thinking? Because when he got to the shore, we're going to find out, he goes back and helps him. Like he's the strong guy and he pulls the nets out. But we don't know, right? He was startled maybe. Whatever it was, though, you got to understand, somebody still had to hang around that boat, hanging onto the net, and somebody had to paddle the boat back home to the shore, or they would have sunk out there and nobody would have had any fish. So these other guys, pretty important guys. So in the church, right, we have Peters, we have Johns, we have James, we have a lot of different people, and they're very valuable. The body of Christ is a unit. Though it is made up of many parts, it forms one body. And so all of them important in the body. So Peter is wonderful because he when he has to react, he does it. There's another guy that sort of thinks carefully. Well, wait a minute now. If you do that, what's going to happen later? So I could teach on all of this, but I'm not going to today. Verse 9. Then as soon as they had come to the land, they saw a fire of coal there, and fish laid on it, and bread as well was on there. So Jesus had provided already. Well, this is kind of interesting now. Like, why did you bother? What's your point? He brought his own fish and bread, I guess. Jesus had already packed the whole thing. So he had pre-planned this, or he just, miracle, I don't know, we don't know. So, what is he saying? I mean, I guess he's saying, the best thing I can think of here is what the point is, that we are going to go out there and catch fish as if we're starving. Like even when you're tired and we think, well, we don't need fish. We're good here. You know, like, we don't need more people in the kingdom. This church is too small. Or we can barely handle what we have. Whatever. We say this. I say it all the time. And he's saying here, you know what? Maybe we don't need it. Maybe Jesus doesn't need it. But the kingdom, he wants us. He wants us, which is bigger than needing us. And so he says, we go out there and we catch. We always keep our nets out there. And yet we depend. We do it as though we're on our own and our own strength, but we depend so much on Jesus, we act as though we've never got a fish in our life, which for some of us is actually true. And that's complete surrender to God, because we know we can't do it on our own. So we do everything as if we had to do everything in our own strength, but we go out there and we do everything in our power and might, right? Which sounds wrong almost, right? But we know, while we're doing that all along, we know we can't do anything. Christ is the one who's doing it, but we still make ourselves available and do it. So they see this fire there, they fish on it, bread on it, they could probably smell it, it's good. And Jesus said to them, no, bring some of your fish. Because they probably thought, wow, we'll just leave them. It was 153, by the way. I don't know why, right? But we know that it was 153. And so, you see, I want us to see that, right? There's more to this story than just getting food. It's the same thing as there's more to the Christian church than getting people to fill the chairs. I know that's a bit of a leap there, but there's more. You can have a full net of people and you can sit them here and, like some people have tried everything. Like we'll offer $20 to everybody that comes to church. Instead of them giving, we give them. What a wonderful way to share God's love. But it doesn't work. They don't come to the most important part, which is to Christ. So, there is more to this story than just having a net full of fish. There is something about, I got to think that there's something about obedience that he's trying to teach them. There's something about trust. They had to trust him. They didn't rebel right away against this master who was being very unreasonable. There was a demonstration of his power to be able to do what is impossible. We are in the business of doing impossible, supernaturally, not just what we can count. Because right away somebody went out there, and I don't know why 153, but I'm thinking, and I hadn't thought it before, but I'm thinking it now. Like, they go count. We got 153. It's like some other people in some other churches. You tell them, how is your church doing? We got 153. 153. She said, well, bring a few of those. But I've already got them on there. I think that's the message that's important right there. It wasn't in the sermon. 11. Simon Peter, verse 11. Simon Peter went up and he dragged the net right? Full of large fish, 153 it says. And although there were so many, the net was not broken. I don't know why that's important. It just makes this whole thing miraculous in a sense, right? This is the miraculous part of the fish catching part, which was from beginning to end, made no sense on the temporal and the physical level, right? Verse 12, Jesus said to them, I have to hurry now. Jesus said to them, come and eat breakfast. And it says, so only one way that would make sense. It says, yet none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? Knowing that it was the Lord. Well, I don't know, like, what is that supposed to mean? If you knew, then you wouldn't ask. But I suspect they had some doubts. But probably the first thing they wanted to say is, what is going on? Who are you? Like, you keep coming in and out of our lives. Like, some part of their own humanness would have wanted to ask that. What's happening? Is this really happening? Or they might have been thinking maybe pretty soon we're just going to wake up from this dream and we find out we're still, fishermen out on the lake. Verse 13 says, Jesus then came and he took bread and he gave it to them. And likewise he gave them some fish. Verse 14, this is now the third time Jesus showed to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. That was the third time that he came. It's important to know that. Right after this, Jesus restores Peter. See, this is why I said maybe Peter overreacted, because he's got some undealt business. Maybe he says, oh my gosh, now I got to face him. But he's already faced him. He was already in the upper room. But verse 15, so when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than those guys? I want you to just pay attention to the more than those guys part. Like, is that a question that Jesus would ask? How do you measure more than those guys? If I said to you, well, so which one of you loves me more than the other guy? How do you know? How do you express that love and how do you measure it? And Jesus is asking a very pointed question to Peter. Now, I've never heard this said by anybody, so I'm saying it. But Jesus is saying, and I didn't even read it in any commentary, but I'm thinking, you've got to pay attention to the more than these guys, these other guys. Because what's about to happen. So it continues. He said to him, well, yes, Lord, of course. Yeah. Are you sure? Is it more than those guys? Is that what some Christians say? Like, I love Jesus more than you. Why? Because I am a prophet and I know this and I can teach you that and the church is no good. Somehow Jesus is going to be real pleased with this. Or God is. I don't think so. I'm more obedient, I'm more discerning, I'm more loving, I'm more knowing. Is this what the fruits of the Spirit is? No way. You see how that sounds terrible? But I'm telling you, you just visit Facebook every once in a while and you're going to see some stuff on there about the Christian world. And you'll see that what it is. Now, I don't want to become one of them, you see? How easy it is to draw into that. We're not to do that. That's what Jesus is about to teach Peter. But so he said to him again a second time. And I think that's the clue of asking it over and over. Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord. Well, you know that I do. I just said I love you. And he says, okay, tend my sheep. Take care of my sheep. You're a shepherd. Take care of the sheep. Well, I thought I was a fisherman. No, you're a shepherd. Verse 17, he said to him the third time, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And by this time, Peter was grieved. It means he was just sad. He was just cut to the... He's thinking, what is going on here? Because he said to him a third time, do you love me? And now he's questioning this love. Maybe it was the whole point of asking him 3 times. So how much do you really love me? Do you really love me more than those guys? And you see, I think when I've heard this preached before, I think the conclusion would be, yes, Peter loved him more. They made him greater. That's why he's the rock of the foundation of the church. No. It's the opposite. I'm here to tell you today. He's saying to him, you got to come to this conclusion on your own. So, do you really love me more than they love me? Not because you're going to be greater. No, because you're going to find out in humility that you don't. That we're all at the foot of the cross. It is level ground. Level. As level as you can get it. When we approach Christ in our humility and in our brokenness. But he said, Lord, you know all things. I give up, in other words. Lord, you know, just whatever you say. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, then feed my sheep. But the question still remains. Did he love him more than the others? We're never answered. That's a cliffhanger. Did he? And people have concluded that he did. That's why he's the rock. And upon this rock I will build my church. But